Hi everyone, how you doing? Az here from Heel versus Babyface, joined as ever by Robert Meyer Burnett. Correct? I'm getting the Meyer right now.
It is fantastic to be here. I'm so excited to do. I think there have been few things that I've been looking forward to during this coronavirus situation we've been dealing with for the last 6 months. But this has given me a new what do you want to call it? A bump in my step.
A new spring in my stride.
A spring in my stride. Yes, I mean it's a bump in my step. A spring in my stride. I very much look forward to these days with you.
You see, those are beautiful. If it's any consolation, if that's the right phrase, I do too. I love doing this. I did a stream last night with Gary from Nerdrotic. You know Gary.
Yeah, it's his birthday.
Yeah, it's his birthday. Yeah, he came on. Yeah, we have a scheduled stream, but it was his birthday. And I told him after when we finished the stream, I told him afterwards. I said, "Oh, I love doing Wednesdays with Robert. Just doing these shows about the prisoner. Just like, fantastic."
I like the prep. I like the prep. I read about the episodes. I watch the episode again, ponder the episode, sort of. And this one has a lot to ponder.
I don't try and read external. And the only reason why I don't is I don't want to have an external influence drive me. Like if I hear something and I'm like, oh, yes, I'll have a bit of that. I love to watch the episode again. And then I love to, like you said, I just like to think about it.
Right.
Exactly. And I just like to think about where the episode leading to. I like to look at the main players, your number 2, your number 6, who's the main other person that they normally bring into the show. I like to try and work out their motivations. Like in this episode, I'm pretty convinced that in this episode, this is not a number 2 episode. This is not this number 2 is not interested in number 6 to break them. They're there for different reasons. And because it's a small village, you're inevitably going to come across number 6. And as we hear in the episode, there are so few prisoners left. The vast majority of the village, which you did hint at last week, are in fact wardens now. They've all turned to the other side. And so obviously you are going to be inquisitive about the remaining prisoners. So that's why number 6 does probably get a lot of attention, even though he's the focal point of the show.
Right.
He's one of few remaining people.
I think one of the great joys of this particular episode that you notice almost right away is how much of it is shot outside.
Yeah.
And Port Marion has never looked more beautiful, I think, than it does. You pointed out, I think, in last week's episode, how it's raining and miserable all the time when they were shooting. Whereas in this episode, the sun is out, there's beautiful broken clouds, and you get to see there's a lot of great shots where you see a lot more of the village than you've ever seen it before. They're on high locations looking to the camera shooting down, so you see the backgrounds, and I think that really added to this episode. It really opens up. I mean, sometimes it can get a little claustrophobic, but this episode, the majority of it is not. And it gives this episode a much more expansive feel. I mean, there's even, they drive around places you haven't seen. You get out onto the water again. It's a big episode. And it feels, compared to last week's episode, it just feels more open and expansive. And, visually, it was exciting to watch.
When they filmed when they're at Port Marion for the first set of filming, that's when we got the sunshine.
Right.
When they came back for the second set of filming, it was just raining and miserable because that's come nearer towards winter time, whereas this was done springish time when they recorded. And yes, you're absolutely correct. Whoever the director was, we got to see some really beautiful shots of the village. It played very nicely with the camera angles. We got to see some established camera angles. We got to see some new camera angles. It was a very visual episode, and it needed to be a visual episode because I think it constantly played with the concept of escape. And I
Right.
know that's a major theme with the show, but when you're filming and recording in a studio, you get a sense of claustrophobia because you know it's a stage, you know it's a sound stage. Whereas when you're constantly outside in the open, and we're seeing so much more expanded village, a little bit of surrounding area as well. Another question gets answered this week as well, because there are cows in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the milk come from? The cows that are in the field. And so we see an expand, and I think the concept of space was played with. I don't know if it was. I think it'd be great if it was purposely, but purposely or passively, they definitely played with the concept of open space.
Well, also, I mean, you get to see the beach area. And there more and people frolicking at the beach. And also there's a lot of what I loved about this was there's a lot of sabotage going along. Like you see, well, we can pull out the cameras and we're gonna set up a little repair shop in this little cabana on the beach. You know, and there's just a lot going on visually that I really enjoyed. Now I should point out that something very interesting that delighted me last week. In the UK, this was released, the 40th anniversary Flash Gordon remaster in 4K. It comes out in the United States this week from Arrow. But it just coincidentally, Clytus, Ming's henchman, who does more villainy in Flash Gordon than even Ming himself, is played by Peter Wyngarde, who is the number two in this episode. And I'm a huge fan of Peter Wyngarde. He stars in one of my favorite, I guess you'd call it a horror movie, supernatural thriller, a movie called Burn Witch Burn. And he's a terrific actor. And he's kind of got this Elvis pompadour going on, you know, the black side, you know, and he wears the number 2 scarf. He seems to be a little like, if there's such a thing as a mod number 2, he's pretty mod. He's not a, he looks like he just stepped out of, I don't know, London of 1968. And he's got that great Peter Wyngarde voice. And another interesting thing, this is just an aside. So Bernie Williams, who was the production manager of the show for 13 episodes of The Prisoner, he went on and he was an associate producer on Clockwork Orange and Barry Lyndon for Kubrick. And then he went on, he was an executive producer of Star Trek Generations. But he also was a producer on Flash Gordon. So I'm wondering, maybe that's how Peter Wyngarde got the job as Clytus, because they already knew each other and worked together. So those are my little bits of, and by the way, I did not look any of that up. This is all stuff I put together in my own mind. I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
I don't doubt it.
Okay. So it's interesting because Bernie Williams was a very well-regarded producer. I have a friend, even a friend here in LA, and he was her mentor for a while. And it was good stuff.
I referred and yesterday I spoke about you in the stream I did yesterday for a little bit, and I referred to you, and I say this in a loving way, so please don't take any offense. I referred to you as a puppy. I said I said I just love doing streams with Robert because it's like playing with a puppy, you know, so much enthusiasm, so much fun, and you just want to play with it. You just want to constantly play with it.
Well, I take that as a high compliment. You know,
it is a compliment, and you know, your knowledge is so vast. And I was saying this, I think I was saying this to Gary off camera. Actually, I said that your knowledge is so vast. It's wonderful that you can just draw upon these references, and obviously it leads into different conversation. I'm going to have to get that Flash Gordon. We'll probably have to do a Flash Gordon stream.
Well, you know, what's really interesting too is the transfer is beautiful. I mean, it really is. And they did some digital cleanup that I don't mind. Like they removed wires that you could see. I don't mind when they do things like that, because the filmmakers would have done that originally if they could have. It's not like adding a substandard CGI Jabba the Hutt to Star Wars. It's not like that, but you know, I again, these episodes, I love. This episode opens. It has such a great opening where number 6 kind of spies this guy it opens with Rover.
Yes,
you know, this really mysterious Rover is just Rover is moving through the village, and there's this great. It's a very surreal moment when everybody just stops. and stands absolutely still, as if it's a precursor that all of the people on the village are chess pieces.
But this gave us information, because in the first episode, the number 2 stresses when Rover appears, stop. Everybody stop. And then the guy was running around panicking, and then Rover went and got him. This showed to me that Rover is attracted to fear.
Interesting.
Because everyone moved and remained silent. It remained still as Rover passed through. The old gentleman that walks past and doesn't bat an eyelid,
who doesn't, no F's to give this guy.
No,
he doesn't care.
He's not scared of Rover. He don't give a shit about Rover whatsoever.
And that
to me said he's not scared.
Yeah, number 6 sees him. That's all he's looking around like who's Rover after? He doesn't really care. Once he sees this guy who doesn't have any F's to give about Rover, he's like, I gotta go find out what's up with this dude. And it was a great way to open this episode. And then number 6, of course, follows him down to the chessboard.
The human
chessboard.
Yeah. Whereas, he's invited onto the chess set. Another thing, before we go slightly deeper, ladies, into the episode is, again, this episode to me just flowed brilliantly in this order that we're doing.
Right.
This order that we're doing, I think there's another reference to I'm new here. And again, it fit in with the whole block. I think this block of 4 is nigh on perfect.
I agree.
As the opening 4 episodes of The Prisoner. And it just, again, synergistically, there are references which harken back to themselves once again, which I really enjoyed. Going back to what you're saying about Peter Wingard is I found him a very interesting number 2 without him actually having massive of amounts to do.
Right.
They kind of gave us an orange, sort of teased that they were peeling a couple of layers, and then just put the orange down, and you're like, okay, I can deal with that. And a couple of differences with this number 2 was normally they wear the cream turtleneck with the blue blazer, non-trim. Peter Wingard wore the cream turtleneck with a very European. Now, I think it looked very Italian.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
A very Italian, buttoned up, much higher top. And his hair, when you talk about the Elvis Pompadour, again, to me, very Italian. And I think they were throwing another, they were throwing another bone out there for people, saying this is from another international country. But once again, very British. Everyone is very British because it's all about whose side you want, etc. I thought he was really good. And then he's very polite. And he's got the mascara. He's wearing the mascara, if you also realized, which is very Thesp-esque. And he was a Thesp, he was a thespian. So it kind of fit into his stage performances as well. I think the mayor in the Batman films, was it Castor somebody?
His name is not Anthony. His name is on the tip of my tongue.
There's this begins. One of them begins with.
Is it Nestor? Nestor?
Nestor? Yeah. Oh yeah. Nestor. Nestor. Somebody.
I want to say Carbonara, but it's not Nestor Carbonara.
No, but he wore eyeliner as well.
Yeah, he's definitely got that vibe.
Yeah, so there was an interesting element with that.
Yeah,
and then he's so polite, but when we see him in his private time, he's doing some karate.
Well, that was a really interesting. That was a very interesting. You cut to him, and you're like, what's he doing? Like, is he in a spa? You don't realize and then of course at the end of this little brief interlude with him, you know, he and he's good at it. He takes out a board, you know, he smashes it in half. Which is something I thought they were that was a precursor to what might have been a boss battle at the end.
Well, I think it was showing that this number 2, there was power beneath.
Yes.
That's what I think it was trying to. He's Nestor Campbell. Oh, Carbon. I thought Nestor Campbell. Whatever. Yeah, I think it was trying to display that do not be fooled by this guy's exterior. This is a tough as nails number 2.
Yeah, and he has his mannerisms, while, you know, obviously he still sounds British. His mannerisms are much different. He seems to me more of a man of action. Like you said, I could see him. He is Italian, but he's a guy who goes out on the town. I mean, this is the guy that when he's not in the village, he's a party animal.
Oh yeah, he's doing things. He's an international man of mystery.
Yes, he is. and that's one of the things that I liked about him. You know, and I love that he's got a whole different feel. Even our spoiler alert, if you haven't watched last week's episode, even our female number 2 still felt kind of a piece with the other number 2s, but Wingard's number 2 feels different.
Yes.
Like he came from a whole different thing. He has a whole different background. You know, I could believe that he once in his younger days, like, slit people's throats. Like he was.
Yeah. He was an assassin. He was. He's a James Bond. You know, more of a James Bond. He kind of came across as almost a mirror of number 6.
Yes,
in a way.
Absolutely.
But what if number 6 was number 2? Kind of that he would use his charm. He would use his poise, his calm. But you know that underneath there's the rage. There's the bull.
Yeah.
You know, beneath the bonnet, there's the horsepower.
And he seemed almost slightly bemused about the whole thing, like being in the village. Like he was kind of I felt that he was having more fun than the other number 2s, maybe.
Well, like I said, I don't think he was ever there for number 6.
Right. No.
So whatever he was tasked with doing, I think he was doing his job very well.
Well, if anything, he was much more focused on the Rook.
Yes, and I and I think it was Jason King. Of course, he's Jason. He comes across very Jason King like. Yeah. although when I look at Jason King, I'm just like, how's he not gay? How is Jason King not? That guy should be like on the town with dudes, you know, not pulling women. But you know, it was another time. But he was very interested in the Rook and their experiments. It's the classic case of setup and payoff in this episode.
Right, absolutely.
There are so many things. There are a couple of things which are there's multiple things which are set up and they're all paid off. Every single solitary thing, every thread is covered. Everything is paid off, and very early doors. We'll go back to stuff, but very early doors, they say, "Oh, we're going to have no problem with the Rook anymore."
Right.
They were right. You know, spoiler alert, but they were right. And what we see develop in front of us, we're going along for the ride, and we fall for the trap because we are always looking at it from the perspective of number 6.
Well, and also the way they play it, like we were talking about whether he gets a win or if is a win for number 6 or is it a loss. And in this episode, for the most part, he seems pretty in control because he already knows what they do. He knows all their games, so he's up on it all. And yet he's still looking for allies. And I really like the whole opening chess game of the film when he's talking to the Queen, trying to make friends. They have a great conversation, the two of them. And then there's the great moment at the end where I don't think it's not the Rook, it's someone else on the chessboard. And he says to him, he says to the guy, like, why do you do this? And the guy says, "Oh, I like to play the game." You know,
Yeah,
but,
yeah. It's just another guy. Yeah,
yeah, he's just another guy. But he's a playing piece. He's not playing the game. He is not. He's just
a pawn.
He's
He was
we're
a
all
literal pawn.
pawns, my dear.
We're all
You know,
pawns, my dear.
from the
Again,
first episode. I mean, it refers right back there. But it's so great that he's like, oh yeah, well, I like to play the game, and it's so funny. I've always loved that line because
he's being played.
He's being played. You know, it's not like it's subtle, but it's still a great moment, and I do love the conversation between the queen and number 6, because there seems to be mutual respect there. And again, she says a lot of interesting things, and number 6 mentions number 1, and it's a great exchange. And of course, setting up her character, and in a way, she seems like she's so on it, and then she just gets turned into this tragic. What happens to her is kind of horrifying, really. Especially brilliant. Watching it from our perspective, when she seems like such a strong, capable woman, while she's literally the queen, and then she just gets reduced to this simpering
to a pawn.
I love you, number 6. You know, she's not even a pawn anymore. She's just following him around with these puppy dog eyes because she's been brainwashed into loving him. And it's so, I mean, especially in our day and age now, you know, watch this strong woman turn into a Stepford wife, essentially, is really disconcerting. I'm like, man, because number 6 hated her as much as I did watching it. He's like, get away from me. You know, clearly something has happened to you, and he's not having any of it.
Well, the conversation was very clever, because if you listened intently to it, whenever they were talking, the conversation that flowed was when they were talking about the Baron, the guy who was actually one of the, you know, chess players,
right?
As opposed to a participant,
one of the chess masters. Yes.
Yeah. So they were, you know, who is he? Oh, we think he, you know, rumor is he used to be a baron somewhere.
And that's the man number 6, you know, sees that doesn't care about Rover. That number 6 has followed him, and that's how he made it to the chessboard in the first place.
Yeah. So, you know, it's where, don't know. So, but it's back of it. But as soon as he says, who's number 1, then we get the classic village response. It doesn't do well to ask questions, you know. And that was the thing. You can talk, or let you talk about inane stuff, but you try and talk about village-related things, Stum. And he pushes her on it. She won't answer, and he's meant to be moving, and he's not moving. And so they're shouting in the megaphones.
You know, he's resisting. And there's this great again, editing plays a big part in this. And that scene when he's supposed to move, all the other pieces, whenever someone's number is called, they move immediately. He doesn't move, and they do this really interesting juxtaposition of all the different speakers in the area. They keep repeating the command. It gets cut faster and faster and faster. And again,
call the substitute, call the substitute, call the substitute, call the substitute.
He's resisting even when he's actually on a chessboard. He doesn't want to move. He will not give in. He will not submit.
No, he wants his answer. He wants the answer to his question, and then he invariably does move. And then the person who's across from him is, don't worry. The bishop's like, don't worry. You're protected by the queen. And then we have this brilliant exchange in number 2's office, where they're sort of watching and enjoying the game of chess in there. And he's like, oh, number six is protected by the queen. And number 2 is just like, oh, she won't put herself at risk to save him. And it's just like, oh, he's thinking like a number 2. You know, the strategy is there.
And it's also interesting because you get a sense that they're not just observing him. The fact that he's there is just an added bonus for their entertainment value. But there's Rook. Yeah, there's others. They're looking at something else. He just happens to be there.
Yeah,
because there's no reason for them to be looking at him right now. He's not really part of their agenda yet.
I just think there was something going on in the village that day, and it was kind of entertainment for them as well.
Yeah,
just something to watch. Nothing's going on. There's no yellow alerts. Rover's not doing anything. Everyone's conforming, apart from that bloody Baron, but we know where he's going. He's off to play the chess, so we got him all right. And he says, after the match is over, he says to number 6, I resist now. I mean, they've got everything from him that they wanted.
Right.
But he still plays silly beggars with him, and he's just like, why? And he's just like, just keeps me sharp. Just to piss him off. It's just quite a funny, eccentric sort of chap. But he I was going to say, I won't say implants the idea, because in last week's episode in Free for All, when number 6 takes up candidacy, he says on the balcony, I intend to find out who are the prisoners and who are the warders. And this eccentric Baron, ex-Baron, again puts the plants, says the whole thing about, there's very few of us left. There's a way to discover who's a prisoner and who's a warder, and then that sort of gives number 6 the idea of how to determine which is which is how essentially you respond to authority.
Right, of course.
So if somebody who is a warden knows that you're a prisoner, they're not going to take orders from you, because they believe that they have superiority over you because they're on the right side of history.
Well, but it's not above them to play. Everybody pretends they play. They'll play into that. And this is one of the more elaborate. As this episode unfolds, it's one of the more elaborate plans, because number 6 recruits a number of people. It's not just one person. I mean, he even gets the shopkeeper who sold him, a map.
Yes, in the first episode, that was a great.
It was great to have him come back.
Yeah, this is why it's great that he comes back early doors, because I don't think we see him again.
No, I don't think we do either. And it was a great callback, and obviously because he was there at Port Marion, so they could add him in. And he's got one of those great British character actor faces that you would only get from a British character actor.
Just a big rumpy pump, roly poly.
Yeah.
Moles on the face, sort of expressive. I don't know what sort of things going on here. I've never had my books looked at before, But during the chess match, the Rook independently moves without being called by the chess masters. Pushes a pawn out of the way and storms down.
Goes all the way to the end of the board, and that was a really interesting. What was so interesting about that is it's unexpected, because it seems like everybody's so orderly, and there's spectators watching the game, and there's this respect for chess. That was another thing. The whole idea of that there are games that are supposed to have rules. There are games where everyone really is a pawn, and these games are revered, and suddenly the Rook has completely disrespected. Like you have this authority within the authority, and that the authority is the chess game itself, and this guy has completely transgressed. I mean, chess is really it's almost a proxy for the idea of civilization, because chess is so refined, and the people who play it are called masters, and if they're really good at what they do, and it's a lifelong avocation to be a great chess player. And so the Rook and the Rook obviously is a cornerstone player on a chessboard. He just says, screw it. I'm going to march straight down to the end of the board and not care, which is he's completely disrupted the social order of the game, and everything is complete. You might as well say that it's all fallen into chaos because of what he's done.
Well, I mean, I would go a little bit further than that myself. Chess is a game which is played. The pieces don't independently move. There's no independent variable. So there's the puppet master is always controlling the puppets. So I think again it's a analogy for the village. With number 2, number 1, whoever it may be, the chairman of the village is the puppet master over all of them. So whether or not you're a participant, whether or not you're a master, whether or not you're a spectator, even a member of the surveillance crew, wherever you are still a puppet to this organization. And again, you could go broader afield and say that it is very societal as well. That we ultimately are puppets because we go through so much regiment. There's so much regime that we have, so much conformity that we go to. We conform to the 9 to 5. We conform to the Monday to Friday. We conform to the weekend. We accept the rules. So although we move independently, we're ultimately being ushered, into a very specific direction.
But it was also a really neat, quick visual way to make number 6 realize that, oh, there's a kindred spirit. There's somebody that maybe we could form an alliance, or I want to get to know this guy.
Well, I mean, he doesn't. I think initially at first he doesn't. He's like surprised by the independent nature of it. But then he thinks that they're just going to melt his brain at the hospital. So I think initially he thought, well, that's the last time I'm going to see them, because when number 6, when number 2's driving past, and number 6 is coming out of his apartment, and they have their first conversation. I think he says, what did you do to that man? He's kind of like shouting as if other people, to make other people listen. What? Where did he go? Why aren't you sort of concerned about the Rook? And he's like, jump in. He's like, why? He's like, I'm off to the hospital. Come and have a look.
And that's another, like, I don't think that building's at Port Marion, is it?
No.
Yeah, I mean, no. I love that you see this gigantic, stately hospital, this beautiful facility, this Gothic cathedral-like building that's the hospital. It's like, oh, again, it's more of the village that we're seeing, and I love that.
Because the hospital features prominently in a number of episodes.
Yeah.
First
and it's
episode,
like they did second unit. They went out there and shot a bunch of angles that they would use for the rest of the series, so they didn't have to go back and get it. But it's so great. I mean, I love that building.
It was interesting. So it's always interesting that the hospital is removed from the village as well.
Right, and there's nothing around it. It's unto itself. It's
just cows in a field.
And there's such, I mean, whenever there's mind control, which there's a lot of, I mean, the idea of this hospital, it is not a place of healing. It is a place of manipulation. It is a place
yes.
It's great.
It's hospital in name only. It's essentially a re-education facility.
Yeah. It's like a gulag, you're going there
you're going to be re-educated. And then we get the classic electrocution test, which number 2 explains to number 6. We have dehydrated the Rook. He's going to wake up parched and requiring water, and we're going to send him a tasks, get him on the right track.
And he goes, it's very Pavlovian, it's very simple, it's not a whole lot to it. It's your basic psychological manipulation and torture techniques.
Very, psychological torture. And physical torture on top.
And it also seems like, the Rook he's like a nice guy, and it is really sort of, when he wakes up, you can see he's in pain. I'm so thirsty. And watching him like go through the different colored water dispensers, it's actually kind of painful to watch.
Yeah, you want him to get a drink. Yeah,
this poor guy, man. And he works his way down, and no dice, no joy the entire time. And it's funny because
he touches the blue, and then he gets electrocuted off the blue one.
Come on. But and it's even worse because he seems like kind of this schlubby guy who doesn't deserve this. But
no, he's big thing came off my lamp. I think it might need a dusting at the top.
I'm wiping my brow only because it is 100 degrees outside and my air conditioning is trying to cope. But
he looks like. Well, we know that he's very mechanically minded, and we know the reason why he's in the village later on, which is
Yeah.
explained. And it's he just comes across as essentially the everyman, the everyday man, you know, just the guy who was doing his job that, unfortunately for him, happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
With the irony being, of course, that it was completely irrelevant anyway why they brought him into the village. So we get that bit. But after he's been electrocuted, after he's not been able to get any water from any of the dispensers, they then, because there's a person shouting at him to don't go to the dispensers, don't get the water, and he's like, and then he says, go to the blue dispenser, the one that he got the massive electric shock from. He's like, no, I don't think so. It's like, go to there's nothing to be scared of. Go to the blue dispenser. And he goes and he presses it, and this time the water comes out. It doesn't get electric shock, and he can drink his fill. And that is when the very sinister female doctor, who was great,
so good. I mean, what a I mean, she's like Cruella de Vil, you know.
Yeah.
Like, there is no, I mean, she's just this side of mustache twirling.
Oh yeah. You could see her just doing this, you know, in the corner. She's just like, oh, we'll have no problems with the Rook now. Set up. And number 2's like satisfied with that. He's just like, great, you know, good, you know, went fantastic, splendid, you know, type of business. And then she just, the great thing is she's got no fear either.
Right.
And I love the way that she talked about number 6 as if he wasn't even there. You know, dismissive of him.
Yeah, as far as she's concerned, he isn't.
He's just another toy to be played with. And she's like, oh, I'd like to have a crack at you. And, you know, I'd like to have she's talking to number 2, you know, incidentally, I'd like to have a crack at number 6. And he's sort of half leaving. He sort of comes back, you know, he's talking about me, type of business. And number 2 is just like, well, nothing to it. You know, we can't do anything extreme at the moment. And then she kind of pays him attention. It's like, oh, yes, I'd like to have a go. And he's like, yeah, you can make it your life's work. And then walks out.
And for her, I mean, all of these people are just rats in a maze. They're just all experimental subjects. She probably has zero empathy, doesn't care, as long as she gets the information or whatever it is, whatever her nefarious experiment she happens to be running, as long as she gets whatever results she's looking for, doesn't matter who these people are. She doesn't care.
There is actually a nice little moment where number 6 corrects number 2. Because he says, this is a, you know, established test with rats. And number 2 is like, no, it's with dogs. They did it with dogs.
Yeah.
And number 2 is like, oh, same thing, you know? It's kind of whatever. Rats, dogs, they did it anyway. But I just found it interesting because, again, it always displays number 6's non-willingness to conform. So normally in polite society, we may not correct somebody because we know, rats, dogs, whatever. You know, we know that what they're talking about. So we kind of, in polite society, don't say anything. Well, not anymore. Nowadays, probably haven't been on Twitter going. But you know, he was very quick to correct number 2. You know, I'm not playing your game. So that was so the Rook gets released back, and number 6 starts following him around the village. Again, we get good expanse of the village. Great shots, lovely angles, different angles. I always love it when there's different angles.
Yeah, I mean, and we see perspectives that we haven't seen. They make a good. Well, they do a lot where they position people where you really see the village in the background of shots. And that's not something, I mean, they also the multi-level nature of the village. Some things are high, some things are low. They do a really good job of doing that. And then also the beach, you know, to and fro on the beach is well done. Normally when you get to the beach, it's somebody running, they're alone, you know, but this you really get the idea that, that this is a thriving, you can probably rent volleyball nets and volleyballs and play on the beach if you want to. I mean, people are having a good time. It's like, oh,
yeah. But you notice that when they do like larger shots of the village, they'll always make sure that the green dome is in the shot.
Yeah.
You've always got that. Number 2 is always watching you.
There's a great shot. There's a great shot from low. I don't know if it's on the chessboard where you're looking up and you see the green dome looming high in the sky. It's a great shot.
Yeah, I think it did it pan up? There's shots where it pans up to the green dome as well. It's all calculated.
Absolutely.
This isn't style over substance. Everything is very specific in this show. So well, we just refer to him as the Rook. I think he's maybe 38. But the Rook, no, actually, I think he's higher. He tries to get away from number 6. Number 6 catches him. They have a little bit of a moment, but then number 6 says, "Look, I'm interested in your mind."
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, okay, we need to, let's talk." So he's like, "Okay," and then he says, "Why are you here?" And then the Rook says, "Well, I just happened to come across some details of something or other, and they brought me in, and then a stupid bureaucrat left it, and it got leaked to everyone anyway. So there's no point in me even being here."
And so he's an engineer, like he's good with electronics, and like you said, he's like the everyman, but he's like was tech support or something. He he wasn't John Drake out in the field. He worked for Q Branch or something.
He was some, like I said, he's just like the everyday man. He was the 9 to 5. He went home. He had a wife, maybe a couple of grommets at the house as well. They had steak and kidney pie on a Sunday. That's that sort of bloke. Your regular, lived in a terraced house. Just an everyday, relatable working man. He's just a working man. It's like, what, number 6 is like, "Do you find that funny?" He's like, "No, yeah, no, I mean, no, I do actually find it funny." And he thinks that number 6 is a warden, and he's like, "Oh, you've tried this trick on me before. It's not going to work." And he's like, "No, I'm a prisoner."
But I love that dynamic. I love that the Rook thinks that number 6 is this authoritarian figure that's just trying to play him like he's been played. Like, you don't know how long the Rook has been there, really. How much he's had to deal with.
A year, I think he said. Because he does get asked how long he's been here. He's like, "I don't know, a few months."
Yeah, but that's what he says, a few months or a year. Yeah. So he doesn't.
He's lost track of time. Yeah.
And I felt the idea that he's been browbeaten, like they've been trying, because when he says that, they already had all this information. Why am I here? He's just sort of exasperated and he's almost resolved himself to his fate because there's nothing he can really do. But he's tired, he's fatigued, he's annoyed.
Oh yeah, he's just like,
he's and then he just thinks, number 6, you're just gonna do it to me again.
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm not gonna conform. You're gonna be like, "Ha ha ha!" I'm gonna get dragged out my house. You're gonna take me back to the hospital. Gonna do some other horrible things to me. You twat, you bastards. But
right.
So that I think he's just like, I think I've devised a way to distinguish who are the prisoners and who are the warders. So they start going around the village, and they speak to various people or look at various people. And if eye contact is very important, he looks at somebody with eye contact, and then he just keeps it on him. And the guy just sort of like gets up quite confrontationally, as they say, "Why you fucking look? I know you're a prisoner. Don't look at me like that. I'm not." So it's just like, that guy's clearly a warder, because he wouldn't, if he was a prisoner, he wouldn't be maybe so quick to do that. And then you're looking at the people that subservient. You look at, the guy's painting the arch. It's just like, what's going on here? So is this all right? No, all right. And do you think it's all right, Rook? Yeah, it's all right to me.
Well,
right,
what's funny about what I think is funny about the guy painting the arch too, it's not like he's painting it a very different color.
No, same color.
It's exactly the same color, and you just get this idea that okay, they're giving people these endless tasks. There's people just painting forever. They're never going to be. Once they finish painting the village, they have to start all over again and keep painting.
Yeah, it was sort of kind of. It's just like finish this and then go to the next building and then the next and then the next, and by the time you've gone all through them all, then it's rinse and repeat. Well, it's a little bit weathered now, so you better give another lick of paint.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so they start, and then we get the shopkeeper from the first episode. Come to inspect your books. You haven't had a look at my books before. Well, first time for everything. Well, they're all in order, so again, subservient to authority. They start picking out who are still the prisoners.
Yeah, what's really interesting about that is by going back to that shopkeeper, when we first meet him, when number 6 is asking for a map, this guy is clearly in on the whole thing. He understands what the village is, only local maps or whatever. And then to see him in a position where he might not be completely under the thrall of the authority of the village was sort of interesting. He at first, when you see him again, like when I was watching the episode again yesterday, I'm like, oh, this is another great detail where you think this person is in on it. That's part of the tapestry of the village. When you've come to see my books and you realize, oh, maybe and then apparently he's not on the side of the authority. That he's willing to throw in the towel, or was that another manipulation? But I like to think that it wasn't. I like to think that he kind of was his own man.
Yeah, same. I think that I think that he just knew how to behave.
Right, exactly.
Because,
and I like that, because what it does is it sets up the idea that people that we've met or seen in the village previously, there might not all be like, we just assume everybody's in on it, but they're not all in on it. And so as a viewer, I think that was a really good move to make, because you realize that your own perceptions might be wrong.
But there is a hint in episode 1 in Arrival, because when he first enters the shop, he's speaking in a foreign language to the woman. You never hear anyone speaking a foreign language. Well, apart from when you have the maid, but that was but that was very specific as to why she was speaking in a foreign accent. That was part of the trick, as part of the trap. But other than that, you don't hear anything. And even like I say, with the number 2s, they're clearly from different countries. We've had France, probably Italy in this week. The week before, Russia. So there's different countries that these number 2s are coming from, but everyone speaks English. The Asian taxi driver in the first episode, very cosmopolitan here, speaking British. Talks about Czechs and Poles in a British accent. She doesn't try. So we get a couple of little hints that you might be indulged your own language for a short time, but again, it's about the whole show's about conformity. One thing's about conformity, and so everyone will conform to the norm, and the norm is that the village is very British in a sort of nature. Whatever British means in the show, it doesn't necessarily mean the British Empire. It doesn't necessarily mean the United Kingdom or anything like that. But British, whatever British means for this show, everyone conforms to that sort of mentality.
Yeah.
So we then get we've had our little recruits, But then we find that they're getting a little bit suspicious of this gathering. They've knocked out the comms, so they can't hear number 6 and his little band of merry men chatting. And so they drag in the queen. The mind-controlled, hypnotized queen, who they're going to put a heart monitor on. Essentially, it's a heart monitor, but it's going to track her pulse rate, and it's only going to activate when she's near number 6, because they've programmed her to be in love with number 6. She now loves him.
And I have to say, this was really they take what seems to be a strong, powerful, intelligent woman, and then they reduce her to the worst kind of damsel in distress stereotype. So they couldn't have demeaned her more, I think. And they really have. They've taken her strong femininity away from her completely and put her entirely under the thrall of number 6. I mean, she has no agency, and watching it from today's perspective, I thought it was particularly disturbing, which meant I liked it more. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I mean, it's interesting 53 years later or 52 years later how that element of it really works. I think it's really uncomfortable now, and I love that about it. And she just has turned into this simpering, I love you, number 6. You're my favorite. I just want to be near you. Let me bring you hot chocolate. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty great. And there's another. I wanted to mention another time where they're observing him and the Rook talking, and then the comm is out, and then they finally get the comms back on, and they're having that great exchange about chess strategy. Yeah, because number 6 knew, and it's just a great. Again, the way how number 6 is now manipulating. Well, he hopes he is using their own tools against them.
Yeah, he's playing the game. He's playing the game now. This is number 6 is in the game.
He's one of the guys on either side of the chessboard, or at least
he thinks he's no longer a pawn. He thinks he's a chess master, and it's him versus the village or number 2. With the reprogramming of the woman, it just kind of harkened back to Dance of the Dead and Roland Walter Dutton, where they lobotomized him essentially at the end of that episode. And the kill order was kill his individuality. That's what they did. They killed his mind. They kept the body alive, but the mind was dead. Right. But this to me was essentially another form of that. They had taken everything that she was and reduced her to a pawn. The queen was now a pawn.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you have to in this episode look for the chess references. You have to, because he was her knight, to her. So he's brushing his teeth. He wants to he's got to go to bed because there's curfew in the village. And then he just hears her singing away merrily in the kitchen. And she's got a dressing gown on. I was like, hey up. She's got her dressing gown on. She's just in his house making him hot chocolate before he goes to bed. Oh, you like a bit of hot chocolate before you go to bed. It's lovely. Super smashing. And it's just kind of like, oh my God, she's been done. They've done her.
I mean, if number 6 was Bond, he would have had her stay the night. Let's get busy. But not in the village.
Oh, why you're here, Miss Moneypenny.
with that slavish devotion, imagine the fun number 6 could have had with her. She'll do anything for him.
Well, I think that's one of the great things about number 6 is he's apart from there's a couple of times, but he doesn't ever show his hand very often. We don't see his cards, so he's never displayed affection to a woman, but he has displayed compassion.
Yeah, he would never he would never take advantage. I'm joking.
No. No. I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean. But I mean, it's like you don't. What I'm trying to say is you don't view number 6 as a when I say an alpha sexual male,
right?
Whereas James Bond is. James Bond will shoot you in the face and he'll do you up the dirt box. He will. He'll do any of it. but with number 6, you don't ever look at him as that sort of person. His whole agenda is different. He's not your typical secret agent. He's not your typical that we see with the James Bonds. This is very much more cerebral.
And he knows too. He knows that she's as much a victim as he is. I mean, he's very aware that most of the people that are in the village, if they're not the wardens, that they're victims. And I think he empathizes.
At her first. Yeah, he shouts at her, and we get a great line where he shouts at her, and she stops crying. She starts crying, and I can't stop crying, Curie. I dusted before this episode, and you saw the dust that I held up, and it's got into my eyes. So my eyes are all buggered up at the moment. He shouts at her, and she starts crying, and he says, "I'm waterproof. A slight drizzle won't affect me." Just such a great way to brush off a female crying.
Yeah, I'm impervious to your feminine wiles. In no way.
He wouldn't fall for it with the other maid when they had the maid, and she started doing the fake crying, and he was like, "No, sorry, darling, that ain't gonna work." And then he kind of like throws her out, and then she breaks down again and starts crying. And I think that's when he realized, he's like, "Oh no, she's not acting. She's been coerced."
Right.
It's not like, "Oh no, she's not a warden. She's not trying to trap me. She's not trying to manipulate me into bed or whatever." No, this is somebody who's now been taken over, and her mind is not her own.
No.
So we're going to have to see what we can do about that. And so we have the great little montage of him and the Rook going around the village, sabotaging cameras, stealing equipment, setting things up. So if you steal something, then a van's going to come. And when the vans come to fix it, you get into the van, you nick the stuff from the van as well. So great little things. And then she's chasing him around on a Jeep.
And then he does that. He pulls into a side street, and she goes right on by so he can continue.
Yeah, but then we're actually slightly out of the village. We're on the outskirts, and again, we get different angles, different things that we haven't seen before, and I don't think we ever see again. Then he eventually tells the Rook, "Look, ditch. She's on it. She's not gonna fucking go away. Ditch. Hide the stuff. I'll deal with woman." So he gets out, and then he jumps into her Jeep, and then tries to play nice with her, knowing that things aren't. You're going with this. Okay. What are you talking about? You crazy thing. Because she says, "You think I'm crazy?" He's like, Yes, I do think you're mad." So we get that great little moment where they just again he's got all his, because you never see the other people until the end, so you just get the impression they're all doing little bits and bobs. They're all combining stuff.
Yeah.
And then we get the beach scene. Now, I found this really interesting because this was the part of the beach that they rebuilt for the soundstage for Chimes of Big Ben. And it don't look half as good as the real thing. But this was the what they were trying to recreate with that. So you see some external shots in the Chimes of Big Ben, but that's much later on in our viewing.
Right. I wanted to say one other thing. With the Queen, the exchange they have at the beginning of the episode, which is really the first substantial conversation number 6 has. It is really creepy how far afield, how far she's fallen. What has been taken away from her. You really get a sense that none of that personality that we saw at the beginning of the episode remains. None of it. And it's really terrifying to just how callous the village will destroy your mind, and they won't care as long as they get what they want. There is no morality. There is no empathy. Whatever they need to do to you, they're going to do regardless of what it does to your humanity. And I think that's one of the the juxtaposition of how this character was introduced and what she becomes, it really gets under your skin.
Well, yeah, because you I mean, you don't get the impression that they're going to get her out of it.
No. Well, she's not. I mean, number 6 isn't like, let me take you away from this place, baby. Let me involve you in our scheme. There's none of that.
No. And then you never see her again in the show. I think we get another number 8 at some point. So, you know, what happens? Does she get so lovesick that she does herself in? You know, this is, or do they just like, oh, we've used her up.
Yeah.
Let's ditch it. You know, and it's oh fucking hell, Gary. Sorry, I just seen Gary do a fucking horrible thing. Gary, it's a lovely thing, but it's a horrible thing because he shouldn't do it.
Isn't it his birthday? Shouldn't we be doing that for him?
Exactly.
Thank you, sir.
Can't stay, love you guys. Have fun. Gary, thank you. Lovely, naughty man, you. We all tell each other off this sort of thing. So he's thrown us off. But you'd never get the impression that they're going to take her back to the hospital for reprogramming back she's served the purpose, it failed. Probably just ditch
you know, I hate to say this, but it reminded me, and I'm just gonna, here's my thought process. So when I was a kid, the very first pornographic movie I ever saw was a movie called The Devil and Miss Jones. And the plot of The Devil and Miss Jones is like a Twilight Zone episode. There's a really, the movie opens with a suicide where this woman has killed herself in a bathtub. I mean, this is a porn movie. Then she ends up going to purgatory or wherever, and they're going to send her to hell. And she says, well, I don't deserve to go to hell. Can't I like live my life out or go back and do something sinful so I feel like I deserve to go to hell? So basically they send her back and she lives her life out for like a month in carnal lust or something.
Okay.
And it turns her into a complete nymphomaniac. But the end of the movie, she's locked for all eternity in what looks like a prison cell. And she's a complete and utter nymphomaniac. And she's locked in there with a man that believes that spiders are crawling all over him. And he has no interest in touching her. And all she wants is to be made love to. And that's how the movie ends. You know, and in a way, when I was watching this, her devotion to number 6, like, please take me, reminded me of Devil and Miss Jones. Now, I don't know what this says about me, because I saw that movie when I was like 13 years old when I wasn't supposed to see it. I just received a VCR, and my dad actually walked in on me and some friends watching this movie because it was the first, none of us had ever seen a pornographic movie before. And but the end of that movie always stuck with me when this woman is locked in a cell with a guy.
Stuck with you.
Well, yeah, and this guy, but the horror of being locked for all eternity. You love somebody, you want to be with somebody, and they're like, "There's spiders crawling all over me." I mean, that's what I thought about our poor queen has been reduced to that. Like, no matter where she goes, all she has left in her mind is her love of number 6, which is pretty horrifying.
Well, that's. I mean, I know it is dark, but I get I kind of got the impression that she probably did herself in. You know, because she could never attain number 6. That's the way that she was now programmed,
and that's pretty dark because they show you a woman who's strong and intelligent and capable and seems to be at the top of her game, and they just reduce her to nothing. And then, as you said, if they drive her to suicide, they drive her to snuff it. Man, that is some dark stuff that the village puts up with or instigates.
Hammer into anvil. That starts off with a woman committing suicide because of number 2.
Yep.
So it's not out of the realms of possibility to think that, particularly with the way that the village programs people and uses them as tools. They are pawns. We're all pawns, Medea.
All pawns, Medea.
That line is so poignant for the whole of the series. It's not a throwaway line because he likes to play chess. It's the structure of the village,
right? And by extension, all of us, the viewing audience, we too are just pawns to be sacrificed.
Oh yeah. When you
More so than ever before, it seems.
Oh. We're disposable right now. Every one of us, bad looks for it. And so we get the montage of the nicking stuff, etc. Then he goes onto the beach, goes into the little tent, and they're building something. The Rook says, "I need a transistor. I need a transistor to get this going." So number 6 is every time he asks for something, the Rook asks for something. Number 6 is leave it to me. Leave it to me. Leave it to me. He is a very commanding presence. That's just him. He is a very hands-on to-do person. And, you can imagine that he has set everyone their tasks.
No, absolutely. And they seem to be pulling it off. It's going well. Like they're able to steal a camera, and they're able to build these things. And it really does seem like, well, maybe they'll succeed. And this is another reason why I really like seeing this episode before the chimes of Big Ben.
Goes too far, goes way too far.
Yeah, I mean, the chimes of Big Ben ruins these kinds of setups for me for the rest of the series. And that's why I love this, because in our order that we've been watching, you really believe that, well, in your mind, maybe he will get out. Maybe somebody will get out. It seems like they're in for the big win here.
Well, there's little creeps, In the first episode, he gets to the beach. He gets done on the beach.
Right.
He gets into the helicopter. Turn it back around very quickly. Very quickly, it was turned around. He didn't get far at all. It's like over the top of the village, turn it around, bring it back. Dance the Dead. He got rovered. He got rovered. Free for all, he got rovered. But this time, as we see, he gets a little bit further out to sea. He gets to the ship. So there's like a progression with his plans to escape. That's why trying to Big Ben for a second episode, the way that they put it, doesn't work, because it's
no, it actually, I think
all the way
it compromises the series as a whole.
That's why I think this, like I said, this four episode block is working perfectly. So he sees the queen, or the pawn as she is now, and he knows there's something up with her. So he has another chat, trying to work out what's going on, and she starts talking about, oh, I love you, and if I didn't love you, if you didn't love me. She's like, I don't love you. Oh, fuck off, woman. And she's like, well, if you didn't love me, who got me this locket then? And and it's just, oh. And she's like, well, your face is in it. He's like, hey, hello, can I have a look, please? Oh, so she lets him have a look, and he sees that there's the resistors and transistors and that inside of it. It's just like, oh, she is absolutely being controlled. And it's just like, not a very good picture. Do you mind if I just keep this and I'll swap it out with another one? Yoink! And he's in and he's out of there. Gives the locket to the Rook. Is this good enough? Will this work? Oh, this is and this great line. He says, "This is everything I need." And when you look back at when you know what happens in the episode, these lines tend to take on a slightly different meaning.
Of course.
So it's kind of like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted, real quick, straight away, and you got it for me. And you're the one who always goes hunter-gathering, while as little maidens are doing your bidding. Sort of business. So then the plan of action, they meet up in a stone boat, and the plan of action starts to take effect. Saying, right, we're going to make a move tonight. We've got the dinghy, little inflatable bed. We've got the transistor radio. We've got the plan. So everyone get ready. So he does the trick where he pretends to be a plane, gets on the transistor, pretends to be a plane not the coordinates. They got the whatever it is frequency for where they think they need to contact, and then they get a passing ship saying, "Oh, what's going on? You're all right?" And he's like, Mayday, our engine's on fire. We're losing altitude. Looks like we're gonna have to ditch in the water. Okay, what are your coordinates now?" And then he uses, because they're obviously not in the fucking plane, uses the paper, starts crumpling up some like tracing paper, it looks like.
To make it sound like there's interference. Yeah. It's so great.
Static, yeah. Static.
Now it's such a cliche, but back then it probably seemed
good stuff.
That's clever.
Yeah. So and then he cuts the look out for the SOS beacon that we're going to put out.
And when he gets through to the ship, when the ship answers, you as an audience member are like, you get on the edge of your seat, like, oh my God, are they going to get out? Is it going to happen this time?
Yeah.
It sounds
we got somebody. And then you go back to the supervisor's room, and it's just like, we got a Mayday message coming through from a plane. And, and you can see that this is something that does happen. Mm-hmm. They will have planes going round where they are. They will have, shipping freights and stuff going through.
Sure.
So they're always keeping track of them, because they're keeping track of not necessarily just the village, but what could potentially come into the village. So he says, yeah, we picked up the signal from a plane. And number 2 is just like, okay. What any issues? And it's just like, well, there's this boat in the vicinity. Like, just leave it to them. Leave it to them to deal with.
Again,
so you're kind of like, ooh, they don't care. They don't care. They might get it. They might get away with it. They might get out now.
It really, the audience, as an audience member, you're really set up. I mean, it offers this. You think, it's like the end of the Shawshank Redemption. I have hope.
Yes.
I have hope. Say what now? I'm gonna cross the border and go to meet Tim Robbins on the beach.
I never saw that film. I only saw the porn one, the Shawshank Redemption. Sorry.
You have never seen the show. Oh, shame on you.
Now I'm taking a piss to get another porn film joking. They hear that the beacon is close, so he takes the dinghy and the transmitter to the beach, pushes it into the water, says to the Rook, let's turn the beacon on. So they turn the beacon on, and then the supervisor's like, oh, this beacon's real close by. Do like a 6-mile sweep, and it's like, oh, it's nearer than that. This is all right. Do another one. It's like, it looks like it's within 3 miles. So they said, okay, get the searchlight on then. Let's get the searchlight on. So the searchlight comes on in the tower that he goes in the very first episode. And the tower, by the way, which is nowhere near the water, but just that, pay attention to that for something that happens. And so the searchlight comes on. So number 6 turns to Rook, is just like, we got to take out the searchlight. Because they got their motley crew together. It's like, right, we're going to take out the searchlight, because they're in the stone boat at the time. So him and the painter go into the tower. They have the fight with the 2 guys.
Yeah.
Punches one of them out of the fucking clock tower, and then you hear a splosh to say he's okay. He's not dead. He landed in the water. There's no water nowhere near the tower.
Nowhere near.
That was trying to say number 6 isn't the killer.
Yeah. So standards and practices. Greedo can't shoot. Can't shoot first.
But he killed him. He killed that guy
straight up.
So they straight up killed him. So they get rid of the beacon. He goes back to tell the Rook, okay, let's push out to sea a little bit, because they're thinking we're a little bit near. So he pushes out a little bit, and then there's like, right, we're gonna go deal with number 2. So he takes everybody into number 2. Number 2, who he thinks he's going to come out at some point, opens the doors, They're all there waiting for number 2. He's like, oh, what's going on here, chaps? Come say hello. And it's just like, no, we can't say goodbye. And it's just like, oh, number 6, I expected better of you than this, So this is kind of like almost teacher pupil sort of disappointment. Oh, I expected you to do better in this test. Why did you come in with a C? I expected an A from you silly boy. So number 6 has to take out number 2 because he has to take out the ability to summon Rover once they get on the boat, or if they're spotted, or if they're caught. Needs to take that out. So he goes to his control panel. He's looking at the control panel. We know that he's got some familiarity with him after Free for All.
Yep.
And then the signal stops. The signal that's on the beach stops. So number 6 says, tie him up. I'm going to go check on this. So he goes out, runs all the way back down to the beach. The dinghy's there. The transmitter's there, and it's off. The Rook is gone. So you're just like, oh no, they got the Rook. They got the Rook. So he's just like, right, we can't. A spider coming down from the ceiling. No web buildings. No, none of my, no. Spidey, no. No biting me either. Go on, do something over there. Play over there. There you go. So yeah, the Rook's gone, so you think bollocks, they got the Rook. So number 6 also thinks bollocks, they got the Rook. So he makes a last ditch effort to get out to the boat. Get out to the boat, and then maybe I can bring it back in and get the guys. So he goes to the boat, he paddles out, the boat comes by. Are you from flight 24562, whatever? Yes. So they get onto the boat, and they're just like, rest of your crew, passengers, and he's just like, can I speak to your skipper about that? So he's like, yeah, sure. So he goes into the front cockpit, I don't know what it's called in a boat, and he's just gonna speak to the skipper, and then suddenly you hear number 2's voice. Well, hello. And
he's on the screen. It's great.
There's a monitor,
but it's funny because you don't get the idea like that number 2 really wasn't on top of this. He kind of like fell into this. He was monitoring the situation, but he wasn't really even aware that number 6 was putting together his Dirty Dozen team to try and get out. But now that he's part of it, I mean, it's like, well, it is our boat. You did. Yes. You basically contacted our boat. That's the only reason I know.
So we have the great little fight scene. He punches everyone off the boat. Rover's.
They launch Rover.
Wait. No. Wait. We get the reveal first, don't we? We get this is our ship. And he's just like, well, if this is, sort of, he's worried about, because the camera pans back, because he's like, how do they know about this? And the camera pans back, and then we've got the Rook. The Rook is there in number 2's office.
In number 2's, and by the way, it's a great camera move. The reveal of him is really well done, where he's in the foreground.
Just and this slightly walks into shot.
And this might be my favorite part of the episode. The exchange.
Oh without doubt.
I mean, this episode completely sticks the landing. And it's just a wonderful exchange where it goes back to the idea where the flaw in number 6's plan was exactly the opposite of everything that has been happening to number 6 up until now. And he didn't realize that by his very actions, the Rook, number 2, is able to easily manipulate the Rook into thinking that it was number 6 was in fact the authority figure, was a warden. And it's a gut punch of an ending.
Yeah, because the Rook thinks number 6 was playing him all along. And then the number 2 goes, oh no, dear boy, the mistake was yours. Number 6 a prisoner. And he's like, what? And number 6, and just like, then number 6 like starts fighting the ship crew, punches them off the boat. And then number 2 is just like, oh, Get Rover.
Yeah. and the last shot of the episode, with the boat with Rover just pacing right on the bow or the stern of the boat as it moves, and you realize he isn't going anywhere.
I think because he couldn't move in the boat, I think it gave the impression that Rover is meant to be pushing the boat back.
Oh, that could be too.
I think that was the impression that they tried to get, because there was no number 6 couldn't get it to move. Again,
right.
Everything's like the helicopter. When he tries to do anything, locked.
Yeah. And then, of course, we could. The ending, I always love the ending episodes. Like if it cuts to black, like how many moments of black there are before the great graphic of his face and the slamming doors shut. But, I love this episode.
It's fantastic. Number 6 played the game too well.
He played the game too well.
He played the game too well. He told them the rules, and he fell for the trap. He was the person that did everything. He was the guy that set everything up. He was the guy that got everything that they needed. He was the guy that had the plan. He was the guy that, and you kind of got the impression that he was so into leading this band of people to get out that he didn't even have a hint of a clue that they might be thinking, well, hey, we're being played like a fiddle here. And it's also revealed that the Rook had convinced all the others that number 6 was also part of the Warders. So it's awesome episode.
So good.
So he played it too well. He played it too well, and he he was just a pawn all along. Again.
Well, and also there's this idea too that the people that are in the village, it's not just black or white, like on a chessboard. There's varying degrees of what's going on in the village, because like the Rook's crime, as we know from the beginning, he says, I don't even know. They have all the information they need to know on me. Like, I don't even know why I'm here anymore. And I think that Patrick McGowan has number 6 has such the us versus them mentality that it's either everyone's against me or no one's against me. And in the case of the village, everybody's against me, where really there are people with varying degrees of reasons why they're there. So not everybody's ever going to throw in the towel with him the way he wants them to, because some people like being there. Some people think they deserve to be there. And his staunch individuality is his alone. And I don't think he ever meets anybody in the whole of the series that is as committed to preserving their individuality as much as he himself is. And I think that's one of the problems. And that's so illustrated at the end of this episode.
But I also think this episode fits perfectly, because this is the last time we see number 6 genuinely attempt to work with people. He becomes a very isolated person from here on in.
Yes, he does.
And a very cynical person from here on in. Everybody now is an enemy. And every single person. That's
why this order works. The order we've been watching the shows in, because it gives it's a slow burn, and this is sort of the end. This is the end of his innocence, really. He's learning the village. He's learning exactly how the different manipulations work and how everything's going. And now it's like, oh, great, I really am effed. I am fucked.
Yes. Yeah, I'm pissed. I thought I knew the game, but I didn't. I played it too well, because even friendlies can be enemies. Regardless of whether it's, through passiveness, ignorance, through manipulation, through mind control, through hypnosis, whatever. Friendlies are enemies now. And so that features very prominently in pretty much the show going forward. And this is why I think next week with A, B, and C, I think it fits in perfectly, because we see a number 6 fight back. We see him fight back, but he doesn't fight back physically. He fights back mentally. And I think that's important, because I think after the end of this episode, he must be at his absolute low now. He must be just like, I am,
Yeah. I'm
You
stuck.
can imagine him, going back, being taken off the boat, being sent back to his house, and when he gets back to his house, you just imagine he'd be like so despondent and almost defeated. What can I do? And then a neurotic number 2 comes along, and in our playthrough anyway, and gives him a lifeline of hope from here on in. So awesome episode. Right, let's go through some super chats and some questions.
Yeah,
but this is tremendous, this episode, and I love the fact that so much of it was outside.
Yeah,
because it gave it so much more life, and it gave it so much more believability as well.
and just great production value overall. You really feel like you go on a journey in this episode. Sometimes you're just going from room to room to room, but in this one, you feel like you are on a journey, literally, because they're running around a lot. He's driving around in cars, trying to evade the queen who loves him, and then finally going out once you get out on the water again.
Yeah, this is a very proactive episode.
Yeah,
they're busy. There's no downtime with this one.
I mean, free for all in this together. It's almost like a great cinema movie-going experience watching the two of these episodes.
Yeah. I just I sent a tweet to Big Chief before we went live, and I said, "Please, can we have a number 6?"
I love them. I mean, they're putting out their Flash Gordon figures, and they do the Doctor Who figures, of course. But I really wish that they would reconsider. They were making a Maximus from Gladiator. So if anyone from Big Chief is watching this, please make that Maximus figure. I don't know why you didn't make it, because I wanted it. I pre-ordered it. But a number 6 figure, I'm surprised they haven't done one yet.
Yeah. It just I don't know why. Hopefully we'll see a response. Shane O'Reilly and Scottish Nerd. Well, Shane O'Reilly with a €1 phallic unicorn. Thank you, Shane O'Reilly. Can't do without my phallic unicorns. And Scottish Nerd also with a £1 phallic unicorn. Rob Atlas with a $5 super chat. On Amazon, Chimes of Big Ben is the second episode. Made no sense. Your order is making sense. We hope so. I think this is, like I said, I think this set order that we're doing it in so far has been nigh on perfect.
Yeah.
In terms of continuity, I think it just works so well with the development of the prisoner, which is all. And what's it? Yeah, I got to figure in, because I got other thoughts in my head. A, B, and C definitely next. And then I got thoughts about where to stick a certain other episode. And
well, I saw somebody earlier in the chat was talking about A, B, and C, and then the general. With the
same number 2.
Yeah, saying that when it, like, they pointed out, well, what about when the general at the beginning, the new number 2? But I'm like, yeah, but that's a production thing. Like I wouldn't. It's like Pike. I mean, it's like Spock smiling in the cage. You don't turn that into a whole episode. That's just a production error. And I think in our order, I don't think that's a problem.
But he was technically the new number 2 because he was the new number 2 to the island.
Right.
It's not as if you're going to say, "I'm the returning number 2." They come and they go. I'm the new number 2. So yeah,
that's true.
It's just the way that they phrase these things. But no, I think you have to separate these ones, because it builds on, when he comes back, it builds on the tension of his failure in the general.
Right.
Yeah, but Chimes of Big Ben, Rob, does not make sense as the second episode. This is why when we had our initial episode, our initial discussion about the prisoner before we did Arrival, we said we came to the agreement that we should compile our own order, what we thought the true order should be, because McGowan had his 7 episodes. So just with all 17, though, where would we put things? And I think these first 4 are, I think we should make a play to reorder the prisoner.
Yeah, well, I agree. And we are, damn it.
And we are. And we're doing it for funsies because we love it.
That's right. We can call it our own machete order. The same way there's the machete order about the Star Wars trilogy or the 6 Star Wars films. That's kind of what we're doing.
Yes.
And we're right, by the way.
Yeah,
we're right.
Yeah,
our order is correct.
Perfect. Man of War 665 with a $5 super chat. We are all living the conformity experiment. Yes. Pretty much. We're kind of doing the, like I said earlier, we have our structures in society. We have our rules which we agree to follow, because they make logical sense, or they they fit well into our lives. We understand the need to work. We understand the need to provide. It's very primal. It goes back to hunter-gatherer days. It's just a change in the way that we do it. So yeah, we fit into a society and we conform to the society that we're in for the most part. I'm not too sure about Portland right now. But this is about the abuse of that societal regime. This is about the abuse of the citizens. And I think, again, you can marry that up with COVID and the treatment of people and the lockdown of people with COVID and the way that it's been, the way that we could have operated off isolating the elderly, isolating the under threat, but there was no reason to isolate the young. There was no reason to isolate the healthy at all. COVID is a 99.99% recurring survival rate. It's about 3 times as bad as the flu. We don't shut everything down for the flu. So you have to take certain things into consideration. But when a society, but I think this is about the abuses of society. I think one of the things that I've been talking to a lot of people lately about civilization. Like, I am a fan of civil society. Mm-hmm. I am. And I think that humanity, if we didn't have civil society, we would be living in a Mad Max wasteland when there would not be a whole lot of empathy and life would be brutal, because it was for most of human history. We saw that. Or Portland.
Or Portland. And I think the idea of civil society is good. I also think, like, capitalism is, I think, a good thing. The problem is all of these systems get abused by people that want more than their fair share. They want to live off the backs of others. And these systems are perverted, and they get perverted very quickly. Mm-hmm. And this shows that. I mean, ultimately, civil society can work. Capitalism can work. I'm sure Marxism and socialism could work as well. But ultimately, I think the problem is the individual, at the basis of all of our systems of whatever kind of government or community that we have. You have to respect that every single person has to be, their individuality must be respected. And the whole point of a civil society is that human beings, our lives are better when we have functioning civilizations that we can make sure people get food and they can have shelter and they can have healthcare and we have hot and cold running water and we have all of these amenities that have to be built up. They have to, there's goods and services. And when it works best is when people get to be who they are. Individuals can pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or whatever they want to do, as long as they're not encroaching on the rights of other people. But then what happens is these systems get perverted because those that rise up to the top, they do start encroaching on the rights of other people by abusing these systems or being bad capitalists, wanting more profit than they deserve. So these systems, because human beings are inherently selfish and we're inherently, we'll try and take too much. We don't know how to be adults very well.
That's why socialism would never work.
Never work. Socialism and Marxism never have worked. And that's not to say that certain aspects of a democratic or republic can be socialist that can work. But I think what's really interesting about this show and this episode in particular is the individuality that number 6 is showing. The very idea that even the people that should trust number 6, even the people that could believe in number 6, don't. You know, his organizational skills and his staunch individuality and his abilities of being good at his job, suddenly then he gets distrusted. Like, well, I believe you are a warden. And that's kind of where we're at now, you know, where people are distrusting if you're good at something, if you're excellent in your field. Well, he's not or she's not to be trusted. You know, we don't want to believe in science anymore. Even though everything that we have, we're not going to believe. Star Trek used to be about the best of the best, what humanity can be if they're enlightened and they work really hard and you become in the 99th percentile, then you can go on a starship. But now we don't even have that. Our Star Trek is about a bunch of compromised people with learning disabilities and people who are on the spectrum and like, well, you know, I feel like I should be able to be on a starship because I want to be. And no, you're not good enough. No. And every kid does not get a trophy. The prisoner is a kid that got the trophy. The prisoner, John Drake, whoever you want to call him, he's the guy that learned multiple languages. He's the guy that knew how to shoot every gun. He's the guy that you need on the front lines to save the world. And it's good that he's there. And so what was so great about this episode was he was doing all of those things. And because he was so good, then he wasn't trusted. He got screwed over at the end. The other people that didn't trust in his excellence.
The leader. Yeah, he led.
And that's where we're at right now. You know, it's we've been so conditioned that we're now so afraid that we will accept leaders that no longer are very smart. And we'd rather have people that are everymen. Let's let every men and every woman lead us. Let's let the world, when every kid gets a trophy, lead us. We're not asking for the smartest people anymore. We're not asking for the best people. We want people that we can identify with, people that are like us, just like us.
Well, I think it kind of, again, goes slightly beyond. I think we reward stupidity.
Well, that's
and we reward bad behavior. You just have to look at, you know, a multitude of YouTubers, you know, top YouTubers. What are their channels? Their channels are disruptive. Their channels are disrespectful. They're there to play act, to play up. And it's the same with what's called reality television, which isn't reality television. It's fake as fuck. And again, you reward the stupid person. You reward the person who's the idiot, who's the fool. And when you start turning away from rewarding the excellence, from the people that do excel, the productive ones, the intelligent ones, you get trash. Essentially, you get trash. You get trash television. You get trash television shows. You get trash politicians, which we've got. You got trash everything. You know, we have platforms, Kickstarter as an example, that should just be there for people to put their shit on and sell. But no, sorry, we're now a political platform as well. If you don't conform to this political ideology, then you can't go on. Right, fine, you're losing money. You're gonna go bust. You're making $1.5 million a year on fucking Kickstarter. Do you think that's not a business? You're gonna go down. You lost 40% of your staff. You had to fire 40% of the staff because you playing these stupid games that you shouldn't be playing. Brand should shut up. That's what brand should be. Brand should shut up. I'm brand. I give product. You customer. You consume and purchase product. That's our arrangement. Our arrangement isn't, I want to buy a Gillette razor and I'm going to have an advert denouncing masculinity. Why would I buy, you know, this is filtered into everything now. The stupid people have got involved in all these different facets of our lives, whether it be from entertainment to product, to political standing, and this is the product of that.
And you know, like I've always believed, and I say this on my show a lot, every single human being that exists on this planet is unique. There's only ever going to be one of you, unless you're a twin, or if you're an octomom kid. Every single human being is unique. That alone, your existence already makes you special. But it also means that every single human being on the planet is already special, which means we're already the same. So all of us start from an equal position of being special, being unique. There's not another person like you in the universe. But now what you have to do is live up to that. You know, now that knowing that you're the only person like that in the universe, don't be stupid. I mean, you, by squandering the small time, the blink of an eye in universal time that your life exists, if you're not seeking out excellence and you're not seeking out a way to be the best you can be, then you're literally squandering your life. You're squandering the fact that in all of the universe, think about it, the infinitude of the universe, the billions of light years across it is, there's only one of you, and you're going to lead a mediocre life. That's tragic. That's what's sad. And nowadays, we're now living in a world, like I never thought I would live in a world where we wouldn't have people aspiring. And that's not to say that everybody has the same gifts. We don't. Like I always say, I'm never going to be LeBron James, but that's okay. You know, I can do something else, whether you're going to be a great YouTuber or a great scientist. I mean, we like to watch the Olympics and watch people excel there because we all know that, well, those people aren't interfering with my life because I'll never be an Olympian. So we like to watch Olympic athletic excellence. But if somebody's working in the same field as you, if they're better than you, you just end up resenting them because they might have worked harder than you. They might be smarter than you.
Oh,
you know,
I would say a weak person would.
That's what I mean. And I think it like I grew up loving stories about people that were excellent, people that I could aspire to be, to know that there are human beings out there that are that aspirational for me, like James T. Kirk, like Mr. Spock. You know, James T. Kirk was a guy who was captain of the Enterprise, but he got there because he understood he didn't know everything, and that the importance was having a crew behind you that were really good at their jobs, and you didn't resent them for it. You used them as the team. You built a team around you to get a job done. If you need to save the universe, you can't do it alone. So you want the best people. You don't want people that are mediocre or that make your audience feel better because you can relate to them more.
Oh, unless you're Mikey Burnham, in which case you probably can save the universe anyway.
But I do think that's, you know, what was really interesting about this episode is that number 6 is pretty good at his job, you know, and then what ended up happening was he gets distrusted. They don't get to succeed. They might have been able, I mean, they weren't going to be able to escape because the ship they were talking to was part of the village. But that alone, that wasn't the team's fault. You know, that was something they had no control over. But in this case,
if they had gone to the boat and number 2 was incapacitated and couldn't, you know, so there was always that potential. Yeah. If he wasn't incapacitated, then they could have. There would have been no reason to lock out the controls because it's clearly they're pressing a button to lock out the controls of the ship. But yeah, he was using his real life skills.
Yeah,
that he had learned throughout his life as an agent, and it got him done. He did himself in,
and that I mean, that is the danger of where we're at right now. You know, where we should be as a society and as human beings of 2020, we should be team building. We should be building our civilizations. We should be celebrating people's uniqueness, but also demanding excellence from people. You know, where and now it's like, oh, well, I can't live up to your high expectations. Really? Why not?
Because they're on Twitter all day shouting at each other.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's again, these are things that are in these episodes that I think are really important. I mean, I never thought that as I grew older in my life, I would find my civilization falling into mediocrity.
Well, I mean, there are sadly, Robert, there's certain elements I'd like to discuss. and unfortunately, YouTube won't allow me to do that, which is sad because when you get rid of free speech, it destroys discussion.
Which is something, again, I do not understand that. I really don't understand that words, people having discussions and healthy debate, that is the very basis of a democratic society.
Yes.
You have to be able to talk to people on all sides of the aisle. You know, you as somebody, if you have an opposing viewpoint with someone else, it's part of being a human being to be able to present that viewpoint in a cogent, well thought out, well presented way where it allows your opposition to come back and present their case, and the two of you can sit down and hopefully come up with a either compromise or an agreement. And that is how adults and that is how civil society works. And we don't have that anymore. I don't know why. You know, people would say, oh, it's because the Trump presidency. I don't think it's just because of that. I think that divisiveness has been coming around for a long time.
It's got nothing to do with Trump.
No,
nothing.
And it has a lot of different reasons. But we need to get that ability back. We need to get the ability back to be able to sit down with everybody, have conversations, have meals with one another, and talk about our beliefs and what we all want as people, because our baseline as human beings on the planet Earth, we all want to get to the same place, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and hopefully make something of our very, very short and finite lives on this planet.
But how can you do that when individuality is now being weaponized?
That is a very good question. And how do we get to the point? Why is individuality being weaponized? Why, you know, I find it interesting. To me, I see it all as a deflection. In a way, you get tribal about things. So you have a bunch of people that think the same way that you do. And then rather than do the difficult task, which is let's go in and have these very uncomfortable debates with people that don't believe in what we, that's the road that you have to take. But it's much more easy when you've got all your friends behind you and you can pile on to somebody who you don't like, and you can pile on to them on social media. You can pile on to them no matter what that opinion is, because that stops you from actually looking and really delving into your own position. What you're doing is you are absolving yourself of your own responsibility by making yourself feel better in the moment by going after your perceived boogeyman, rather than do the real work, which is building a society. Burning people down is not helping you build the fabric back up, because
it doesn't build you up either.
No, and those people exist. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Do you ship them off? I mean, look, as somebody who was adopted into a Jewish family, I met a lot of people that were leading their lives that have wound up with green numbers tattooed on their wrists and having they might have lived in Germany for 200 years, and they had all of their family belongings, all of their businesses wiped out because somebody decided one day these people are inhuman and we can get rid of them. And that's where we're going. We're going back to that place.
I've said this. I was spoken with Eric July, your boy Ripper. We were talking about something similar on a show we were on together. And I was talking about how we're getting to the point now where we're burning books. We're literally burning books. We are dissolving into 1930s Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
But these instead of persecution of the Jews, these people are doing it under the banner of righteousness, and that's even more frightening. But
it's also based on this idea that somehow there's been a shift in our civilization where it becomes something about feelings. Like it's the way I need to feel good all the time. You've made me feel bad. And and I'm like, you know what? The universe, I've always said, the universe is indifferent to your suffering. When you go out into the world, you can't expect the world to conform to what you want it to be. You have to go out and figure out how you're going to function in the crazy, diverse, nutty, wacky, real world out there that also is indifferent to your suffering. And you need to make the world the way you want it, and you can't expect the world to be. You have to go out into the world and figure out how you're going to be yourself in that world. That's what I meant to say. And I up until I always thought that was what life was about. And to me, I thought that was exciting because part of the thing is to go out and meet people that aren't like you, to find people that you've never met before, that think differently, that the way they think should add to your life, not take away from it. You know, eat food you've never eaten. You know, experience literature that you've never experienced. Think about a political ideology that might not be yours, but wonder, well, it came from somewhere. It's existed for a long time, you know, and it's such a weird thing. Like I was instilled with that idea. That's why I like people. I like traveling. One of the things I like to do is sit down with somebody who I might not agree with and listen to what they have to say. And try and find, we're both human beings living on the same planet, wanting the same things. If they think so differently from me, well, why do they think that way? We must have some common ground because we're both here breathing the same air, eating the same food, wanting the same things. So there is a baseline. Why can't we talk to each other?
Well, this is why Star Trek was so good.
Yeah.
Because Star Trek these are the themes this is what Star Trek was about. Not about
absolutely
inclusion. This is what Star Trek was about. It's about exploring these social themes. It was about exploring these societal themes. It wasn't about let's tick some boxes, and it's about inclusion and diversity. That was just part of how the society developed. It's over now. It's not even thought of then. It's about, so we got to discuss these. We got to play act through different species and different planets and exciting situations about aspects of our own society, whether it be in present day or past day, or days gone by, and present almost a debate of sorts in front of people.
I also think, there's all this talk about privilege. I think having identity politics is the most privileged position you can absolutely have, because you have to live in a society where you don't have to worry about food or shelter or whatever. By the time you get to your identity politics, that's because the rest of your life you're living in basically a utopian. Even though people say, "Oh no, there's so much injustice in the world," well, I'm like, well, you have plenty of time to worry about identity politics, so things aren't that bad. You're not living on like the African veldt, running away from big game that was going to eat you, wondering where your next food is going to come from and where your pregnant wife is going to be able to lay her head at night while there's predators out there trying to get us. We live in, already humanity is in the most privileged position we've ever been in our entire history. Sure, there are problems, and yet we are bitching and moaning and complaining that somebody doesn't believe what I believe, or there's all this injustice in the world. We're in the part of human civilization where there's less injustice than there's ever been.
Yeah, they preach the choir. These people, why aren't they? You want to sort of say that I want. Let's just say, for argument's sake, trans rights. Okay, and in a Western society, they're unbelievable. Why don't you fuck off to Saudi Arabia and then present your passion and your true belief there. See where that gets you. Because in the Western society, you have it so good. You think you have it bad, you have it so good. Go to a country where you'll be thrown off a fucking roof.
That's what's so frustrating. Is that we live in a society where we can say these things. We can go out on the streets and protest if we want. There isn't going to be and it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, also, the ability to create things. There's more opportunity for you as an individual to go out and follow your bliss and go make of yourself what you want to make of yourself. And
Absolutely.
That's true of anybody. One of the great things I've learned about being an American, and the thing that we have going for us the most, I think, that we have somehow forgotten. If you're an American and you say you have a crazy dream, whatever it is, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to make this. There's people in this country that'll be like, that's a great idea. Let's go do that. I'll help you. Yeah. I'll help you. I mean, those kinds of dreams and people going out and implementing those dreams is one of our greatest strengths. And getting together and making something that didn't exist before. That's that's a luxury we have that I would think that's what we should focus on. Rather than worrying about all the injustice in the world, why not worry about what you would like to do? What would you like to contribute to our culture, our society? What can you make? What can you add? And, you know, the prisoner, number 6, is basically there. He's fighting, he's living in this oppressive, horrible place where the individual, the ability to dream, the ability to act, the ability to have your sovereign individuality to move out into the world and do what you want has been completely removed from him. It's been completely taken away, and he has to exist in a civilization that is going to beat him into submission no matter what he does. And we're basically there. Like we've talked about how the village is where we're at now. Well, we're watching people that are willingly part of our free society. They're willingly they will willingly destroy a human being, an individual, take away their livelihood, destroy a lifetime of good works, because somebody doesn't feel that they've made me feel the way I'm supposed to feel. So let me rise up with my mob and burn their lives to the ground. That's where we're at now. And that is freaking terrifying.
Yes.
It's terrifying.
And it's being it's being perpetuated. It's being perpetuated by Twitter. Twitter are actively supporting this behavior, and their algorithm is set up to engage in this behavior. And they are, even when you try and dismiss these people, mute them, block them, it's still showing them in an effort for you to get back into the fight. If Twitter was pulled down today, the world, I say this so many times, the world would immediately become a better place. If Facebook was pulled down today, the world would immediately become a better place. These are breeding grounds for this sort of behavior. The breeding grounds for this sort of nihilistic attitude with people.
But it's the corruption, though. I think that Facebook and Twitter are incredible communications technologies that have existed that our worst impulses on how to bastardize and twist these technologies and use them for nefarious purposes, unfortunately, have won out. And with rather than like these, look at what you and I are doing right now. You're in another country across an ocean. I'm as far away from in America as I could be from you, where you are in America. I mean, sure, I could be in Asia and be further away from you, and we are using this. Good distance, but we can use this technology to have this kind of discourse on a regular basis, free of charge. We can put it up on
visually and audibly.
And people can watch this in real time. This is an amazing time in which to be alive. And you and I are celebrating something that we love, a piece of art that was created 53 years ago. And we're talking about it. This is what this kind of technology, I don't mean people should be necessarily talking about the prisoner. But but this kind of technology exists, and it's being squandered. And our lives are being squandered because we're being pulled into the muck of identitarian politics and divisiveness and basically stupidity. And we should all be ashamed.
Yeah, there's an old saying, and it's never, and I should start listening to it. I really should. Never argue with an idiot. They will always drag you down to their level and beat you with their stupidity. So that that's why you never argue with an idiot, because they don't have the arguments to come back with. So they'll drag you into their slanging match, and you'll never win. You'll just be stuck in the quicksand of it all.
Well, I think also we now live in a world where people are at the center of their own universe, as opposed it's almost like people believe that they themselves are the earth, and then the universe revolves around them. And
certainly some people are not like that.
They've forgotten that no, there is a center to the universe. It's not us, and we're orbiting around that center. And the point is that you're supposed to now go out and understand the universe that you're residing in, as opposed to you thinking that you're the universe and everybody needs to understand you.
Yeah, but I'm not particularly interested in playing that game with a buffoon, an idiot, a disgusting piece of filth that thinks that I should placate them, I should bow down to them, because they want to play Snowflake of the year 2020. I actually last night before Gary came in, I was flying solo for a little bit, and somebody said they said, "Oh, I don't hear you say many positive things about LGBTQ people. Why don't you say something positive about them now?" And I was just like, "This is one of the stupidest things I've heard." Number one, there's no nuance to that. That's such a broad brush of a statement to make. Number two, I treat people like people. So if I'm being critical of somebody and they just happen to be LGBTQ plus, that's who I'm being critical of, because I want to treat them as a person. I don't want to treat them any better or any worse, because if I did, that would be bigotry. That is the whole basis of bigotry. And if you want to play that argument, why don't you say, where is your argument saying, oh, I understand that also you criticize or discuss 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 20, 30, 40 straight white males? It's such a loaded statement to make. And if I was to just make a blanket statement about, oh, yeah, I think LGBTQ plus people smell nice.
But what a reductive way to reductive way to refer to anybody. I wouldn't want somebody to first define me based on my sexuality.
Well, that was what I was saying. If I was to make a statement like that, I am just treating you based off that element of you. And if that is what you want me to do, then that is bigotry. But I would rather treat you like a normal being and a human being. And that means that if you are, if you are nice to me, I'll be nice to you all day long. If you're an asshole to me, I will respond in kind. I believe in treating people the way that they treat you. So that is how I will respond to people. Because you are a member of a group does not make you above criticism whatsoever. And we are getting to the point now where we are getting social platforms that are saying, oh, actually, it is, which means that they're rooted in bigotry.
Right. Because
it means that you can't treat people equally anymore. And that's just crazy.
Well, I think
absolutely crazy.
There's a difference. I mean, there's a lot of marginalized communities that were absolutely discriminated against. I mean, lynched, killed because of those qualities, whether it was the color of their skin, whether it was LGBTQ. I get that. I totally understand that. And that those people that belong to those communities need a voice, and they need to be protected because they weren't. But when it comes to, and that's one thing, but that to me is a different issue than how I'm going to judge somebody as a human being.
Well, protected from persecution.
Right, exactly.
But not protected from being a fucking idiot.
No, well, that's absolutely right.
That's my argument.
I mean, I've got friends that I've literally decades. I've had friends for decades, very, very close friends that are LGBTQ. And I don't even think of the fact, like when we're talking, I'm sure they're not like, oh, I'm talking to my straight white cis friend. No, they're like, I'm talking to Rob, or I'm, when I talk to my friends, I'm talking to that person. And yes, they have all these attributes, but to be quite honest, the fact someone's sexuality is about the least thing I'm thinking about when I'm talking to them. I'm thinking about what is it we share together when we go to the movies, or we read books together, or the things that we like, or we're talking about politics or something. I'm thinking of them as holistic people. What foods are their favorite foods? What is it? Why am I friends with them? How did I meet them? I mean, it's such a bizarre thing that now everybody, what team do you belong to? What does that have to do with me as an individual?
Well, what politics do you have? That's where we are now.
I know.
But I don't think there's anything wrong when somebody from a inverted commas protective group weaponizes that. I don't think there's anything wrong with being critical of that person for the weaponization of that. But we are in a society now where that is the case. If somebody uses their, inverted commas, minority status as a shield, then I don't think it should be offering any protection whatsoever. And when you're doing that, you are becoming the bigot, because you are using that minority status to purposely manipulate people around you. And that surely is the definition of bigotry.
Also, I mean, again, we're at the not to say that bigotry doesn't exist, because it does, but
Absolutely.
as far as human history is concerned, we're doing better with these things now than we have ever done before. Now, does that mean that there's not a long way to go? No, there certainly is, but nobody is better at being horrible to one another than human beings are. And we have been horrible, horrible, horrible creatures. We've lived in a cosmic charnel house for tens of thousands of years, but we're better now than we've been before. And yet everybody wants to make it seem like we're in this horrible place. And we're simply not.
No,
and
we're not.
We're in a place where we have more acceptance and more ability with the technology we have, with the tools we have, to finally get together. That's one of the reasons I like working, and people talk about Hollywood elites. I love working in Hollywood because I get to work with a lot of different people, a lot of diverse people with a lot of crazy ideas. And you get onto a movie set and you've got a lot of crazy, whacked out people that are all very talented, that are working to make something greater than the sum of their parts. And I find it very, very uplifting and fun and spiritually quenching, as it were. And my experience has not been about so much discrimination. It's been about putting people together and making cool stuff. And,
to me, diversity is natural everyday occurrence. It's a natural everyday occurrence whenever I leave my door. It's a natural everyday occurrence whenever I go into a shop, whenever I go into wherever it is. To me, it's just normal. And then then you come onto the internet and you have this crazy fucking bubble going on where everyone's just like screaming, going, look at me, I'm a this, I'm a that, look at me. But don't. And you're just like, fuck off.
Well, I think also part of it, especially in America, is Americans, 65% of this population doesn't have passports. We've never gone anywhere. I mean, I've been lucky to live abroad. We don't go anywhere, so you don't see people. You don't see different points of view. You go to Europe, you get on a train, you can get to a different country in 2 hours with a different language and different food and different backgrounds. And there's a history there that's existed thousands of years before America has ever existed. I mean, hell, there's people in this country that haven't traveled through much of this country. Americans are a very diverse bunch. There's a lot of different kinds of people, no matter where you are, all across the Great Plains, that the 50 or the lower 48 in Alaska and Hawaii, and we haven't even traveled and seen ourselves enough.
But we got it good. We got it good, and we have the social constructs online which are trying to tell us that we are victims. We're not. We are not. We are. In a Western society, there are still certainly places around the world, but in a Western society, we are as victimless as we could possibly be in our history as a species. And until places like your Twats and your Facebooks and stuff like that start to be held accountable for their manipulation, then we're going to breed. We are going to breed victim after victim after victim, and you're going to get Portlands all over the place. I mean, I personally say let them wallow in it. Want Portland? Let them wallow in it.
Well, my sister lives there, so
move her out.
Yeah, but no, I think with the prisoner, it's Patrick McGowan is the one man railing for the individuality to remain, and I kind of see us. We're all going to get there. We're all going to find ourselves in prison soon. Open air prisons that we didn't make. Then we're going to wonder, how did we get here? And our minds are going to be toyed with, and we're going to be attacked, and we're going to be victimized. They're going to try and strip our individuality away. And we're on our way, man.
Dude, our way. This is right now, right here, right now. You want to say anything? You want to be critical of anything? Oh, you're an alt-right Nazi white supremacist. Oh, okay. That's one way. I would not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, or numbered. But
that's what trying. And you can fill in those same words. I will not be stamped, indexed, or numbered. Everybody's trying to brand you with something. And they should be saying, I will not be branded. You cannot brand me with these labels. I am more than these labels. I am more than this. And for you to try and do this, you are the totalitarian. You are the fascist. You are the people that are going to destroy what we have had and what was so great. The idea of the sovereign individual being able to pursue their lives. And if you're out to destroy that, you're out to destroy, you're my enemy. But
yeah.
But you don't want to do that either, because then you wind up in a situation where you're battling in the streets over what? You don't even know.
Well, you'll be battling in the streets for your fucking freedom. Because if these people get control, you just look at what they've done now, you just think what would happen if they get power. I would, there are very few things that I'd raise arms about. I'm a relatively passive person. But if my true freedom came under threat, that is the time that you have to take up arms, and that is the time that you have to fight. And at the moment, it's in a culture war. It's done online. But as you can see, in certain parts of the States, at least, it's becoming physical and tangible. Yeah,
it is. But because, again, I want to see people that have spent time trying to make something that doesn't exist. I work in film, but anything, working in the arts, building software, designing software. If you've ever had to make something, put yourself out there, dream up something. And, even people who have YouTube channels. I talk to people now that the other day I was accused, I've become just a YouTuber. We're out there. People that have YouTube channels are out there making programming every single day. You're creating something that didn't exist, whether it's just you talking for 2 hours, or whether you're having dialogue like this, whether you're going on other people's channels. You're making discourse and programming that didn't previously exist, and it's all about sharing ideas, whether you agree with them or not, but you're still doing something. And that's sitting down, getting the equipment that you need to do. If you want to monetize your channel, getting those 4,000 hours of views and those 1,000 subscribers, that's work. And that's something that you've created out of thin air for yourself. And if you have a channel that gets monetized and people watch and you start making some money out of it, that is work. And that requires a certain sensibility of making something happen that wasn't happening before. And I think a lot of the people that I see out there battling, that's their fulfillment. They think by they're engaging themselves by going out and doing these things. But at the end of the day, what are they left with? You're left with wreckage. You're left with detritus. You're left with a mess. You're left with paint on the side of buildings. You didn't build those buildings. You didn't make the money and finance the building of those buildings, but you'll certainly smash those windows. You'll certainly paint those walls. And what have you done?
And you'll tear those statues down, and you'll burn every part of history that says you are the fucking fascist.
Yeah. Why not try and build and make some history rather than tearing a history that you'd had no part of, tearing that history down?
When they started pulling down statues of abolitionists, and then the justification was, well, they were part of the slave trade by proxy. It was just like, then you're dealing with people who they're not there. They don't care about this. This is just about destruction for them. I have certain theories. I don't want to go into it because we could get into right political philosophy here.
Yeah,
but I got certain theories about why this monumental Teddy tantrum of all Teddy tantrums is happening, and I might tell you off camera, but that's another place for another time.
Yeah, I mean, we're over, and you've still got some super chats to answer.
We gotta. I'll smash through these because we're over time, and you've got a observation probably. Bunyan Snipe with a £5 super chat. If A, B, and C is before the general, why does number 2 say he's the new number 2 at the start of the general? Because he goes away and he comes back. It's the quick answer. He goes away, few number 2s come around, and then he comes back and he's the new number 2 again. And as Robert said, it's part of the process at the start of every episode as well. Niall Dorley, because it's a conversation which doesn't happen anyway, it's just a beautiful introduction to number 2. Niall Dorley with a €5 super chat. Seen the show as a teenager but didn't understand the appeal. Thanks for persuading me to give it another chance. Keep up the good work.
We like to hear that.
Yeah, seeing it through an adult lens is incredible. There's Gary for Nerdrotic with his $100 super chat. Can't stay. Love you guys. Have funsies.
Thank you, sir.
Naughty boy. Daniel Bible, $5 super chat. Liam McKern is the best number 2, but the legendary Paul Wingard is my favorite number 2. Liam McKern, I think, is most people's favorite number 2. But he's in 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And he's great. He's great. He's a great foil for number 2.
He really is.
Yeah, wonderful guy. I used to love Liam McKern. Mark C with a $5 super chat. We are losing our ability for discourse, so a few who have power can maintain it. The question is, who is holding power that wants to maintain it? Well, you just have to look at Twitter. They've got a new bar on the right-hand side, and it's complete propaganda. It's complete propaganda, and it only paints one side of the story because Twitter is trying to influence the American elections. Rightly or wrongly. Wrongly is the answer to it, by the way. But it's just a propagandist piece. You can't get rid of it. You can't click it off. You can't ask for it not to be seen. This is the removal of discourse. I've got no love for Trump, but I sure as hell have no love for the identitarian left either. And the identitarian left is as you know, for people who want to call Trump a monster, the identitarian left is as big a monster as you think your Trump is. These people have compromised and destroyed their principles in an effort to get power. Everything that they stood for, believed with, they've pissed on it and shit on it, so they can grasp power. These are not the people, any of them, who should be running a country. None of them. JMorph1 with a $10 super chat. No message, but $10 super chat. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Mark C with a $20 super chat. Rob, understand we don't live in a country called America. We live in the United States. 51 territories under one flag. I thought it was 52. Oh, yeah, 51 states. I'm thinking of 52nd state movie.
Yeah, ask the Puerto Ricans if they feel part of our states.
Whoa. Thoughts of a president and our government roles are actually getting redefined when you see it this way. Well, it's not really for me to answer. I'm not American. But I think like I said, we've got America's in a position where, I have no dog in this fight. I am almost an independent observer, but I can say independently that I think what I'm seeing for sure is that the conservatives are people who just want to get on with shit. They just want to get on with their lives. They want to get on with their lives. They want to work. And I just see an incredible left burning itself down. I see the left who are just so desperate for their boogeyman that they are destroying stuff to create it. I think that they thought when Trump got into power, I'll just say it. I thought when Trump got into power, it was going to fall apart. Everything was going to fall apart, and it didn't. It didn't. It went fine. Everything went fine. The world didn't stop. The world didn't blow up. Everything went fine.
Until now.
Because they're having the biggest teddy tantrum in the world leading up to the elections, and we things like Portland. If you want to, sure, come at me. But I think that this is domestic terrorism. To say if you don't vote our way, this is what you're going to get.
Well, the real question is where are the leaders of these movements? If you're going to have these movements that you want to bring real change, you need to have people. You need to have leaders. You need to have leaders like Martin Luther King, or like Malcolm X. You had Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. They were coming at the same problem from two different directions, but you had an ideology. You had a figurehead. You had very learned men in the two of them, And while they might have been diametrically opposed as to their methods, you might have believed in one or another, but they were people that you could get behind and you could listen to. They were good. They were good speakers. They understood what the beliefs that they espoused. They knew how to present them. And where are those leaders? Where are those leaders that are smart, that know what they know of what they speak? And we don't have any movements that have those kinds of leaders now. And I think that's part of the problem. And because it's what they feel. No, man, give me somebody who has a philosophy, whether I agree with it or not, something that I can get behind and I can follow if I want to, or not follow, but be a part of, be an active participant of.
Yeah, the only message this is giving is we will trash stuff if you don't give us power. That is the stupidest message that you can give. We're going to start tearing towns apart. We're going to start murdering our own people. We're going to just start destroying businesses and tearing the fabric down of everyday citizens' right to live and work and provide if you don't let us in. Get
yeah.
They're sick. These people are sick and demented. And
also they're going for that quick fix of feeling good about protesting something. It's immediate gratification.
It's not protest, though. It's not a protest.
No. Whereas a true social change requires a nose to the grindstone work ethic where you're down and you're not being caught up with a mob, which is fun and exciting and you get your adrenaline pumping. No, it's being an activist where you're trying to raise money and you're working every single day. You go to a soup kitchen and you feed the homeless. You do all this kind of work that people don't really seem to want to do anymore. Where's the work ethic?
Because that's actually doing something.
Right.
These people can't do anything. They're only designed to tear down. That is the whole nature. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing this. We're seeing this philosophically, and we're seeing it physically as well. It's the destruction of their way of life. But the thing is, as you saw with Chode, they don't want that. You left you left them in Seattle. You left them in Chode to do their thing. There was 5 murders within 2 weeks. People were filtering out all over the place. Why? Because they wanted their creature comforts. They wanted their running water. They wanted their sanitation. They wanted their food. They wanted their shelter. They didn't want people running around the streets with guns in some sort of martial military law.
Well, and it's so funny to me because I'm from Seattle. It's my hometown. I grew up there. And this kind of behavior is so antithetical to what was instilled in me when I was growing up. I mean, Seattle was such a great place where as a kid, I learned so much from so many different kinds of people. And to see where it's at now, I'm like, what happened, man? What has happened? Certainly wasn't the place I grew up.
Well, no. What happened is 4 years ago, people thought they had it in the bag, and they lost, and they can't understand why they lost, and now they can't accept why they lost, and now it's become such a grudge match. They refuse to accept why they lost,
and we've lost sight of I think everything, and what we need to get back to is the value of dreaming big and working hard to achieve whatever it is you're dreaming of for your own life. Rather than worrying about what everybody else thinks and what everybody else does, why don't you concentrate on yourself?
America needs to open up. It needs to open up for business again. There's too many places closed down, locked down right now. There's too many people who can't earn money. There's too many people that can't provide for their families. The longer these stupid governors refuse to open up their states, the worse it's going to become. And all these governors of the states that were kneeling down and washing feet and all that bollocks and fucking putting scarves around them looking like utter dickheads who you knew were just playing the political game, where are they now that their cities are burning? They're all suddenly very quiet. Very quiet indeed.
Also, we as Americans, I mean, you're reading now about how colleges, Notre Dame, they started school and 139 people now have COVID or whatever. If people took responsibility like they did around the rest of the planet, these things could be managed. But we as Americans seem to not care, you know, and I think that we also need to take personal responsibility for everything that we do. And I think there needs to be more of that as well.
I think you know, I think there needs to be more done for the person, for the individual. There needs to be more done.
Yes.
Yeah, there needs to be much more done for the everyday man, woman, who are just trying to live their lives, and at the moment they're not being able to live their lives either through lockdown or they're not being able to live their lives through applied violence by certain areas. And this is where your governors are in place. This is where they have to start stepping up. If your streets are full of filth, clean your fucking streets. If your places are locked down, open them back up. If you are worried about your elderly and you're at risk, protect them.
Couldn't agree more.
It's not hard. It's not hard, but it seems to be for these people.
Well, also, you know, there's the element of well, I think we're spinning off, but there's also the element of profit. You know, not everything for the greater good needs to turn a profit. Sometimes what you're doing is you're strengthening the foundations of your civilization by making sure people are taken care of. And yes, that isn't socialism. That is just how a society works, especially a very wealthy society, that people are paying taxes into it. And we have, like, I mean, America, everywhere you go, there's roads and street lights and gas stations and power and cell phone towers and infrastructure. I mean, that stuff didn't just magically get wished here. That was all built, and it was all paid for by the labor of people. And there's
you're not going to turn a profit by making people forced to shut down the businesses.
Nope. And sometimes, even though it's not necessarily profitable, helping people that have addiction problems or mental health problems, we need to start taking care of people like that as well. You can't just let them live on the streets and think things are going to get better.
No, if you got time to riot, if you got time to fucking destroy somewhere, how about you build a building? How about you renovate a building? And how about when you renovate that building, you look after the people in your fucking area then?
Yeah,
why don't you try? But this is not what they're willing to do. These people aren't willing to do this because that is the furthest thing from their mind. Because ultimately, these people are out there are selfish. Selfish.
Well, that's the real problem.
Right, we are really going on, so let's smack through. Mr. Tickle Trump with 10 Canadian. Thank you, sir. We objectively and statistically live in one of the safest regions for every single demographic possible in the safest of times in the entirety of human history. I 100% agree. We've never had it so good. Never. Like I said, I think last week, we are currently, you and me, we are living better than royalty 100 years ago. We have much better technologies at our fingertips, much better amenities at our fingertips. So even the royalty, with all their millions and billions and lands and everywhere, we can do everything they can do and much, much more. 100 years later, we've never had it so good.
Nope.
Mr. Tipple Trunk again with 20 Canadian. Thank you, sir. More on topic, however. Yeah, we kind of have drifted, but we have drifted into a societal theme. So at least it's right. You know, it's related because it's about the disillusion of society and you know, The Prisoner is a societal show.
Yeah, and the idea that the staunch individuality of the sovereignty of the individual, to me, is the most important thing.
Yeah, this is why you can have these conversations.
Right, and that's what this episode really is. Well, that's what every episode of The Prisoner is about, but I think it's always relevant because we're living in a time now when that sovereign individuality is being attacked.
Yeah, and we drifted here as well because this was the rejection of leadership.
Right.
You know, this was rejection is particularly of somebody who was leading them in the right direction as well. So there was a theme that made us really go off. So I do apologize, but you know, like I said, we could talk for probably days about all that kind of stuff. The prisoner's village, like today, is the result of having too many virtuous people. Let me help you or you'll drown, said the monkey to the fish, safely putting the fish up a tree. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, this is the aspect of the village that they did mention at the beginning, that there are so few prisoners left because all the others have been either assimilated or dealt with. So yeah, you're not wrong. Chris Rollinson with a £2 super chat. Check out Millie Weaver's documentary. I think that is Shadowgate. Okay. And Mr. Tickle Trunk again with 5 Canadian. My last super chat was about people doing the wrong things because they think they're in the right for whatever reason. Beware virtuous people. Oh, you should always be very wary of somebody that says they do things under the guise of virtue. Always. Because normally that means that they are it's been perverted, it's been manipulated. And we don't need to have people doing things for the value of virtue. We need people to do things pragmatically. Your virtue has no place anymore. And J Morph, that's the way I like to say it, with a $10 super chat. I really hope you both find another series to comment on after you're done with The Prisoner. I enjoy your conversations together. Thank you. It's just, yeah, it's awesome to have these conversations. It's wonderful to be able to have these discussions. And like I said, because this is such a societal show, that yes, it is going to drift a wee bit into political sides, because it is dealing with some political themes. And finally, the Richard, after Pris, would you guys do Lovecraft Country? Pris is in prison. We are starting the watch parties in the PGS. I
think the jury's still out. There's only been one episode. The jury's still out on that show. I mean, I think, I think the show, if we need to concentrate on something that it's proven its worth through being timeless. One of the things about The Prisoner is that I've always maintained that pop culture has about a 20-year shelf life before it disappears for a lot of people, because pop culture is inherently about the new. It's about what people are watching. You come up, you have an attachment. And so this is a show that not a lot of people know. And I think by going back, it's a show with themes that are timeless about being a human being. What does it mean to be an individual? What responsibilities do you have? What is the society at large going to do to you? And I think these themes in this show, and it is timeless, and that's why it's worth discussing. And if we're going to continue on and discuss a show, it should have that kind of sort of ineffable quality to it. And I think doing a new show would not necessarily be as worthwhile, because who knows how history will look upon it.
No, but I might do some films or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bit of Flash Gordon, maybe. We'll see. This is something that Rob and I are so impassioned about ourselves. The Prisoner is it means so much to us that we're just kind of like synergistically connected on this one.
Yeah.
This feels so organic. So this is like a very organic theme,
and not a lot of people have done it.
Yeah, and I don't see too many Prisoner anything really to do with The Prisoners, particularly in recent times, since turn of the century. Really,
I mean, this is a cool YouTube thing that we're doing. Again, you and I have created something that didn't exist before we did.
Just a YouTuber.
Yeah, and then we have to, watching the episodes and doing some research and all of that. It's a thing. There's homework. We have homework to do.
Yeah, and your homework is to watch A, B, and C for next week, next Wednesday, which is going to be over on Rob's channel. So massive thank you to everyone who turned up tonight. Huge thank you to my mods for being fantastic. Loves you, my ladies. Big thank you. Yeah.
Well, I was also going to say, I wanted to thank your mods because they plug my channel too.
Oh yeah,
they do a very good job.
Purple Valkyrie, fantastic.
Girls. I want to thank them very much for doing that. Thank you.
I'm trying to get them to Me Too me, but I can't get Me Too'd. It's really annoying. Well, everyone got Me Too'd, and no one would Me Too me. I felt left out. So yeah, big thank you to my girls. And then everyone who hit the super chat button, thank you very much indeed for supporting. Very much indeed for supporting the channel. Rob, as always, an absolute pleasure, sir, to have you on. It's just wonderful to have these discussions with you. Checkmate again. I mean, we say this every week. It's one of the best, but they're all just at the moment. They're all just one of the best.
I also want to give a shout out to Jason Spriggs, Mr. Raygun himself, for creating these graphics over the last 2 weeks. I think he has his website, Mr. Raygun, or you can find me. He loves classic ray guns. So he has got a website where he makes models of classic ray guns and celebrates classic ray guns. He just out of the blue did these graphics for us, and I guess he's going to continue on and keep doing them. So mad props
Awesome.
to him.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. They were absolutely beautiful. Look at this one today. This Checkmate one, isn't it beautiful?
It's so cool.
Yeah. And we'll be back next Wednesday, 8 p.m. UK time, midday Pacific. That's 3 Central and 4 Eastern, I think. Adjust your clocks accordingly. Until then, as ever, as we say, be seeing you.
Yes, be seeing you.